Hello YouTube, it's the Divas in the Details, and I am apologetic about the lighting. It is very, very late at night here, almost midnight in the Midwest, but I had to pick a time where my family was kind of winding down and sleep so that I could film uninterrupted and you wouldn't hear kids playing or singing or in the background or trying to run through the video. So I just want to hop on real fast and talk to you about applying for a Master's of Public Health program, in particular, my experience doing it through distance learning. The reason why distance learning was so attractive for me is because I wanted to continue to work full time. I work at a hospital, I see pediatric patients, and I work in dentistry. And I find great joy in being a hands-on clinician. And while I wanted to expand my horizons and further educate myself, I did not want to give up my kind of reason for being, which is eliminating tooth decay among kids. So I applied for a program that was distance learning. There are several types of distance learning programs, and I want to describe that first. So first, there is a cohort. A cohort tends to be where they have enrollment, and it's a group of people who are accepted into the class who need to show up both in person and are allowed to do some distance learning. And they tend to all finish exactly at the same time. That's how the program is structured. So they finish together. They kind of feed off of one another, grow together, and it is more of a hybrid program. The next program is Synchronous Learning. So that would be a distance learning program that may be fully online, but you are required to show up for a virtual class where you are sitting in class, you're listening to an actual professor or listening to a video, but you are logged in at a certain time, like 3 p.m. on a Wednesday, so that everyone is getting their participation that way. Then there's also asynchronous, and that is the program that I chose, where you have virtual lectures, but they are recorded for you and you can log on to them whenever you want to. That could be first thing in the morning when you wake up. It can be throughout the day, or it could be at night. The key for an asynchronous program is that you meet all of your deadlines. So it doesn't matter when you are tuning in for the course content, how you are being graded and deemed as a good participant and competent is finding someone who is qualified to proxy or proctor your tests. So someone who's qualified to watch you take tests to make sure you're not cheating, you have academic honesty, and that you're doing your papers on time and turning them in by the deadline to be graded. I chose an asynchronous program for the simple fact that, as I described earlier, I work from 8 to 4 seeing patients, and so I needed a program tailored around the fact that I have passion for continuing my current profession as well as growing and furthering my education. So a little bit of background on how you can make your application stand out for distance learning, particularly now that so many programs don't necessarily require a GRE. And in my particular case, I kind of toyed with going back to school so many times. And I kind of decided that I would really pull the trigger and go 30 days before the deadline. I don't recommend that for anyone else. I think you should apply in plenty of time so that if you wanted to take the GRE, you give yourself ample time to study. I would say 10 to 12 weeks so that you can cover sections of material per day and you can test yourself to see how well you're doing. Should you choose not to take the GRE like I did, you still want to give yourself a little bit more time because there are typically letters of recommendation in an application, and you want to give the professors or the colleagues who are writing your letters of recommendation much more time than I did to write a quality letter of recommendation and get it submitted so that it's not affecting your application. I chose former professors and colleagues that I have known 10 to 20 years and that I had maintained contact with for all of that time uninterrupted. So they felt comfortable with 30-day notice, and everyone got their recommendations in to me on time. I waived my right to see the recommendations, so I just put their information in the system. They submitted the letters, and the rest is history. But ways that you can make your application stand out if you choose not to take the GRE is to have a GPA that's on the stronger side. So I would look at all the requirements for any program you want to be a part of and make sure you're above the minimum for all those things. For my particular program, you need to have a 3.0 GPA in your last 60 hours of classwork. And my GPA well exceeded that. My undergraduate GPA, I believe, was a 3.5, and my graduate school GPA from dental school, I think, was a 3.3. So both of those are well within the requirement that was above the 3.0 that the school that I was accepting to was looking for. Ideally, you would want your GPA to be upwardly trending and not downwardly trending. So like my undergrad GPA being a 3.5, it would have been better for me to have gone to dental school and had GPA that was higher than my undergrad GPA. But the fact that I received my doctorate, I have been practicing, and the professors from dental school who wrote my recommendations can vouch for me being able to handle the academic rigor, helped with that. And my GPA was still 3 points above what the minimum requirement was. Also, I think you should pay special attention to your level of experience. So when I finished undergrad and went on to dental school, I practiced in the field from 2006 until this application process in 2020. But when you're applying for public health, you don't get credit for experience for just being a clinician, just being a doctor or nurse or a behavioral health professional. You get credit for actually doing things that are concentrated in the field of public health, so changing population outcomes. So what I claimed as experience was not my first 4 years practicing at a federally qualified health center, but what I'm actually doing now, which I have been doing for the past 9.5 years, which is working in a pediatric dental department in a hospital, going out into the community and treating kids who are not uninsured, new to the country, on provisional Medicaid or underinsured. And then our program developed a way to test kids' knowledge about mechanical plaque removal, how we brush, how we floss, nutrition, and then also any knowledge about teeth, and compare that to the amount of tooth decay they had based on their geographic areas. And then at our visits where we went back to fix any teeth that had decay, and at their 6-month checkup and 12-month checkup, did their knowledge of dentistry, of taking care of your teeth, of nutrition go up? And at their checkup visits, did their amount of tooth decay stay zeroed out once we went back and fixed the teeth, or did it get worse? And so that's more along the lines of what a public health professional would be doing, is that you're trying to figure out more so the reasoning behind why something is occurring, and then trying to do interventions to help the population get better over time. You start at the individual level as a practitioner, and you work to groups of people. And so the fact that I had 10 years experience doing that, so I have a body of data that I could pull from. I have presentations at conferences and posters that reflect the work that we've done. Is more what they're looking for. So you look at the minimum requirements. GPA, you make sure your GPA is well above the minimum. For public health professionals, particularly those who go to school well after they have finished, when they apply for graduate school, well after they have finished undergraduate school or whatever other degree there was before applying for this one, you want to make sure that you have experience that is relatable and relevant to the program for which you're applying. And I would only mention that particular experience and highlight that on your application. There are a part of your application that will be your CV, your curriculum vitae, or your resume that will have everything you've ever done. But when you get to tell your story, your narrative, your personal statement, you want to make sure your statement highlights the things that are most relevant. And then lastly, perfect segue, your personal statement. So first things first, in my personal statement, and that is the thing that I'm most proud of my application, it spoke to why I thought the school that I was applying to was such a great school and would help me reach and realize my dreams, so to speak, and then my experience and my strengths that I thought would bode well for that program, as well as examples from my experience of what I had done as a clinician, and without the kind of expertise and training that I would gain from this program, steps that I have taken to change population outcomes. I think that me telling them specifically what I had done, what my strengths are, and how I thought that this program would make me better, I believe combined with my GPA, the strong letters of recommendation, and my breadth of experience that was nearly a decade helped me to get into my program without a GRE. So while I think the GRE is very important and very relevant, and there are other ways to make yourself stand out in a program without having those quantifiable test scores. Another thing about your letter of recommendations, I would kind of show the person that's writing you a recommendation your personal statement so that they could see, so that they don't say something that's kind of anti what you're going for. And I would also remind them of the things that you were involved in when you were in the core of your relationship with them. So I had a letter of recommendation from my pre-medical advisor because I was a biology pre-medicine major in undergrad. And I just reminded her that I was in the Beta Beta Biology Club, my study abroad experience. And I spoke to the fact that I was an honors scholar and I was able to juggle and be organized, being involved in student government with maintaining great grades, to give her kind of an idea of what I was going for. But her recommendation, I'm sure, was glowing because she writes them for pre-med students like every single day. Then my second letter of recommendation was from the Dean of Admissions of my dental school. So he has been a friend and a mentor for so many, many years. And I felt that he could speak to realistically how I behaved as a student, particularly in our community outreach classes in the clinic, on the clinic floor, and didactically. While my program only asked for 2 letters of recommendation, I did give 3. I also had one of my coworkers write a letter of recommendation with whom I had done 2 abstracts with to present a poster for the American Public Health Association, which is called APHA, in the past, and then also this different organization called the Mobile Healthcare Association that specifically focuses on outreach programs that have a mobile component to them, either van-based or drive up and embed yourself in a school or school base. So I added a 3rd letter of recommendation. So that is another thing that will help you. Going above and beyond the minimally required or minimally that was asked. They asked for 2 letters of recommendation. I gave 3. My GPA was several points over the minimum GPA. I wrote my personal statement and I just laid it all out on the table. And then I went back to my personal statement like 3 or 4 days later, and I kind of pruned down to make sure I was underneath the word count, and I checked the grammar. And then I went back to it a few days later and checked, like, is this really resonating and giving what I wanted to give off? And so then I kind of made some edits. Then I shopped it over to my husband and my mom, and I let them read it as well. And that's a couple of things you want to do. You want to say everything you have to say when you're most passionate about it, but then you want to come back to it several times to make revisions, and then also run it by people that you trust so that they can read and give their input and proofread it for you as well. So I hope these things were helpful of ways that you can make your application stand out for acceptance, even if you do not have the benefit or you have just waived the option, as I did, of taking the graduate requisite exam, which is called the GRE, which is one of the most commonly accepted exams for master's degree programs. It was the exam of choice for my program, a Master's of Public Health. So until next time, this is the Divas in Details. Please comment, rate, and subscribe. I would love for you to support my little growing channel. And this will kind of be a series of talks about getting into graduate school, my experience with the distance learning program, and then eventually my matriculation for graduating with a master's degree. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.